This is Pete Moore on Halo Talks NYC. I have a fellow entrepreneur hailing from Brooklyn by way of Connecticut during COVID-19, Brian Von Ancken. Welcome to Halo Talks.
How you doing, Pete? Thanks for having me.
Good. So we've got a lot of friends in common in the Halo sector, a term that we expect you and mandate you to use going forward. So why don't you give us your background? I saw you went to Tufts, so I've got some alumni crew from there as well. My best friend went there, and then you were at Tough Mudder, which was I guess one of the showpieces of outdoor activities. So why don't you take us through your background, and then we'll talk about what you're up to now.
Sure. Yeah. So I was a jumbo. Grew up in Connecticut. Went to school up in Boston. Played some college football. Made my way to New York after graduating. Got a law degree. Was one of the first employees at Tough Mudder and helped grow that to what it became and what it is right now. And moved on after that and worked for a couple other organizations before I started my own company, Anckor.
So for lawyers coming out of law school, it's not typical that they go into a sports enthusiast startup company. So what gave you the guts and glory to do that versus spend 3 to 5 years working 120 hours in a New York law firm?
Yeah, that was quite a choice that I made. I had the opportunity to go to some go to a firm, but I was interning for Tough Mudder in my third year of law school and just ended up spending a ton of time working there, saw their ridiculous trajectory, ended up learning so much just by doing. And luckily I was able to work with some fellow attorneys who I knew could mentor me through the processes that I needed so that I could get to where I needed to be. And yeah, I took a chance and I'm really grateful for it. I love the network and the people and the experiences I had there.
Mm-hmm. So a lot of startups, what number of employee were you at Tough Mudder?
I mean, we were all in one room. So I would say under 10, there was like 10 of us. I mean, I don't know on the aggregate numbers of people leaving and going, but definitely one room.
Gotcha. So maybe just before, let's spend a little time on Tough Mudder so people understand that looking back, it sounds like, oh, that was a no-brainer, right? Set up these events and have all these people come and they're, weekend warriors and, ultimate athletes, and we're going to put them through a maze of safe and unsafe activities. So I'm sure your legal hat was well needed there. I think you're electrified. What the fuck was that? You're electrified mud.
Electroshock therapy. Yes. My risk tolerance as an attorney is pretty high comparatively to some of my colleagues who I went to law school with.
Right. So talk about, the early days there and, that turned into, I don't know where they're at right now, but it's at one point it was like a $50 million EBITDA business. And, I'd say it was like a bucket list and turned into like a lifestyle for people.
Yeah.
So talk about how that kind of evolved and what some of your learnings were from that.
Totally. Well, I mean, I think that what I learned so much there, but one of the biggest takeaways is that experience is the new luxury good, right? As opposed to people wanting to, get the nice watch or get the nice house, having an experience like a Tough Mudder was something that was really appealing to a lot of people, especially at the time when Facebook was really just starting to get going and people were posting pictures. We were one of the first companies to really take advantage of that and have people post themselves doing a Tough Mudder and, see it go viral. And the company was founded by someone who was under 30 and ended up hiring a lot of us who were under 30 as well. And it was a lot of really smart, motivated, but green people can do a lot. I mean, I remember one of our earlier events in the first couple of years, we had 20,000 people out there and the event director I think she was 24 and the whole team averaged about 26. I was the old one. I was 28. Mm-hmm. and it was just beautiful to see what you're able to do, especially if you have people who are really motivated and care about the mission. And Tough Mudder was all about, it was about toughness, but it was also about teamwork, camaraderie. There were it was a great ethos behind it that allowed the team to really perform highly.
When you look at early stage companies, some people, put together like a traditional org chart, and then other people just say, look, I just need the best people and whoever can do it is going to get it done. And, there's not really a job description. You basically get drafted and we're going to put you anywhere we need you on the field. How, from what you were doing there to other structured environments that you've been in, or maybe some of your friends who've been in, different types of jobs, like how do you kind of view, working in an entrepreneurial environment and like the lack of structure but coming from a legal background, you want some structure so you can actually like manage and like legally control the business. I assume.
100%.
That's your answer. I don't.
No, I mean, it's a good question. And, from my perspective, I feel like the best way to empower people is to allow them to flow where they're inspired and to where they can be willing to put the most energy and effort behind and feel the most ownership of. And so a fluidity in an org chart is very needed, especially in those early days. And, I found myself doing marketing. I was actually, I was a race director at World's Toughest Mudder, where I was just sitting out there in the middle of the night, watching people, jump off this like cliff that we created. And I was like, what did I go to law school for? I was like, what happened here? But I was passionate about that project. And it's just a matter of, enabling a good group of small people to follow their insights, but with obvious limitations and making sure that there's an org chart, because if you do have not enough structure, as it's just, you're not going to be able to get the trajectory that you want. You want to have everybody focused on that mission and have that value system, have that kind of culture. And then that allows you to move forward in the same direction, even if it's a little bit more fluid than it would be from a lower rigidity perspective.
Gotcha. So talking about current events here, and we'll get this podcast out pretty quickly to our network that are all dealing with the closures and the COVID-19, and everyone is trying to, make sure that their clubs are going to be clean, follow the guidelines of, temperature checks and masks, with your lawyer hat on. If you owned a club chain right now, I probably wouldn't be sleeping much. And I would also be concerned about, what is my waiver, and, is there an I agree statement that can really protect me from somebody coming back and saying, hey, I picked this up at your club and I'm suing your club. It's almost like, a pool where there's no lifeguard, like swim at your own risk. So, maybe give our audience a little bit of your free legal advice.
I thought I was here to talk about Anckor, but
we'll get to that. We'll get to that when I want to.
If you're here to get some free legal, yeah, no, I think it's a good question, and obviously, like in these pretty difficult times, you want to be proactive about anything like that. And I know that at Tough Mudder, we dealt with a lot of things like that. People went to these events, and there was always a risk that you could get some sort of disease in the water or something like that. We dealt with, obviously not to the scale, but with anything like that, you just want to make sure that people feel informed and there's informed consent going in. And then it's a combination of, not just shoving it in the waiver, though. I've never been of the mindset where you just put something in the waiver and then you're protected. You really got to be open and transparent about that. Have signage, make sure your team is prepped in it. And like that combination is your best bet to like minimize your risk on that.
Got it. So you spend time in Tough Mudder. You take us to the next stop on your journey before Anckor.
Yeah. So I guess just quickly to go back, the way that I like to think about my past is I lived what I call the should life. And so when I was growing up, I kind of, did what was expected of me. I got good grades. I was the All-American kid. I played football. I was friends with everybody, and I kind of was excelling because I was told to, right? Get into the best school you can. And I think a lot of us, had that. And I kind of continued that on, going into law school, getting a good job at Tough Mudder, and just kind of like going up that should life on that path. And what ended up happening is I got married, and we experienced a couple miscarriages, and this was something that was really unexpected. And
I had the same recently. So
yeah, it's something that nobody talks about, and that ended up leading to a divorce, and it just kind of put me in this headspace of like, oh my gosh, this doesn't fit into my, I'm so used
perfect
to
life is not
life. And so I ended up kind of taking a moment and not knowing what to do. I lost myself in fitness. I just like got really strong because I that's the only way I was taught how to take care of myself. It's like, just tough it out. And I had friends who would take a bullet for me, but I didn't know how to tell them that I wasn't okay. Like I wasn't allowed to say that. And so what ended up happening is I left Tough Mudder and I went traveling for a while and just kind of took some time to try to, understand a little bit more of what I wanted as opposed to what was expected of me. And that led to a lot of, I went to a yoga retreat. I did a silent retreat. I did some men's work, and I just traveled a lot and did some surfing, like the typical divorce guy thing. And what I ended up coming up with is just, I realized how ill prepared I was to handle life, which is just sometimes hard, and how I felt really inspired to create something that could help people take care of their wellness beyond just the physical aspect. And so what that has led to is me creating Anckor, which I can tell you about now. Or
I'll tell you. We'll talk about it in a second. But just on the point of, one of my buddies always tells me, everybody on Facebook or wherever else, they got their highlight reel, and that's not a real. It's not a real reel. And I feel like there's, this desire for everyone to say, you know what, I'm like, my life's perfect. You can come to me, and I'm in the same position you were in back then. Of like, if somebody had a problem, they come to me. So if they come to me and I'm at like the top of that, pyramid, then how can I take myself lower in the pyramid and then go and show people that I need help? Because I didn't want to get off of my mantle where I was the guy. I was the go-to guy. The go-to guy can't go downstream. The go-to guy's got to stay upstream. And I felt like I needed to go through a lot to be able to like raise my hand and tell people like, yeah, you know what? I'm not okay. And there were times when when I was first starting up Integrity Square, and before that, when I had a software company over September 11th, and I wouldn't go out because I didn't want to have to fucking lie to people. And they say, hey man, how's that going? You crushing it? And I was like, you know what, dude, I'm not going to go out anymore and tell people I'm crushing it, or like try to avoid the conversation. So I just unplugged for a period of time. I'd stay in my apartment because everything in my apartment I was able to control, and everything outside I couldn't fucking control. And I was like, it took me a while to be like, you know what, I'm human. And like, like my batting average, nobody bats 1,000, and if you bat 300 and you're out 7 out of 10 times and you're in the Hall of Fame, So
exactly. And I think I felt exactly the same way. And I think that one of the things that's been so interesting to me as I experiment with telling people that I'm not okay is how powerful that is, and how that ends up, you feel more connected to somebody when they put you behind the curtain and you see it, because you're human. And like, there's this thing that makes you feel way more connected to somebody if they're like, you know what, man, like I don't know my shit, or it's like, I'm not crushing it right now. And I think people are so used to seeing the manicured version of people. It's like, copy. And when they reel something real, you're like, oh yes, I actually feel more connected to that. And I actually put you higher on that pedestal. It's right. You wouldn't think, it's counterintuitive, but that's been my experience.
Yeah. Sometimes we'll go through with some of the groups that we work with or investments that we made, and we're talking to the entrepreneurs, and I've been there. So I'm not, I come from a completely different place. I don't ask somebody about like, how'd you do on your budget? I say like, how you you doing?
Yeah.
And you're like, how's your brain working? How can I help you? Type of thing, All right. So let's go to where you are today, because it sounds like you're in a good place and you got a company here that you're excited about. So why don't you educate us on what you're doing and, what the frustration in, I always think of business as you're solving a frustration, and maybe it's a personal frustration. You feel like other people have it, and that, constitutes a company. And most of the companies that we've invested in and that we work with, it's a personal frustration. It's not, oh, I saw an opportunity to, do this type of, workout. And, so I built the company. Like, that's not a good reason. Like, there's gotta be a DNA to it, or it's not going to work.
Oh my God. Yeah, man. This is ingrained in my soul. Like, I feel meant to do this. Essentially, the pain is that I feel like the science is out that there is more to health than just the physical side of it, right? We all know that if we go to the gym, we will get stronger, but we know that to be a whole human, it's more than just eating well and working out. And so the problem that I see, though, is that a lot of us don't know how to take care of the other aspects of ourselves, and we also don't have the time to do it, right? It's so hard to find time to take care of yourself at all with everything that's going on. And so what I felt really motivated to create is like an hour-long workout experience that I say checks all the boxes of total health. And what I mean when I say total health is there's 4 things. There's physical. I mean, because you need the physical, you got to work out. You need the mental side of it. I mean, it's just, we know that being able to feel like you have mental wellness at this point, that's not something that's reserved for gurus. That's something that CEOs do. A lot of very successful people have, are on top of their mental game. There's the emotional side of it, which for me was totally inaccessible growing up. I wasn't able to feel, like one emotion I was able to feel is anger or excitement when I'm watching the Jets. That was it. And then, sorry. I mean, sorry for me. But and then the final is just social. I think that one thing that we don't really know a lot about is that interacting with someone else, like just talking with someone else in an authentic way, is a form of like healing, or like there's wellness there. And so how do we incorporate? And so what I did is I created an hour-long, it's a mindful social workout. And so it's a workout where you're going to be doing traditional HIIT style exercises, but throughout we're also going to be connecting with other people in the class. Like, I don't know if you've ever been to a group fitness class, and it's like, you never talk to anybody. Like, there's no real interaction. It's just kind of like you happen to be next to other people. And so that's something that can be intimidating for people, but I think I do it in a really accessible way. And in addition to that, we have bits of like intentional breathing, some relaxation at the end. And the whole goal is to kind of turn the experience into something that you feel like afterwards, like, okay, I've checked all the boxes of total health, and now I feel like I'm ready to, take on my day or whatever you're going to do next.
So I went to the website. So you got an online component. Is this also done, in a physical location?
Yeah, so we did this in person to start, and with everything that's going on, we're now totally online. We've got classes pretty much every day, and what's really great about this, I mean, you know how it is in business. It's like you kind of adapt to what's going on, but then there becomes these great benefits. Like, I end up having workout classes with somebody from Japan, somebody from England, somebody from all around the world, and what's nice is this class, you end up connecting with other people, so you end up actually talking to somebody in a different country who might be having a really similar experience to you, and ends up being really a unique experience to have, which I think has been really cool.
So you've been on a rocket ship ride with Tough Mudder. Now you're doing your own entrepreneurial. I mean, over the last I've been on a plane in like 7 weeks, and I basically lived on an airplane. I'll get up at like 4:00 in the morning, go to Newark or LaGuardia. Hope I get 3 seats and coach so I can like sleep, and then get up, check my iPhone, and I mean I was running 120 miles an hour for like 20 years, and I feel like the last 8 weeks I can actually like breathe. And I was just I've just been immersing myself back in some music and just like starting to listen to the lyrics and just
love it
down. So I feel like I feel like we're at halftime right now, and I've got like a 45 or 60 day halftime, and I'm really, obviously it's terrible what's going on, but I kind of think I needed this to just like chill me out and like call some people and be like, I called a buddy of mine this morning who helped me out in some of these tough times, with whether it was a loan for a company or whether it was like, I just wasn't in a good place. And, like I was able to call him up, and I just called him up this morning because I had time and I was thinking about it, instead of like thinking about it and then not doing anything about it. I picked up the phone. I said, "Hey, Brett, just want to let you know, the only reason why I'm calling you is to let you know I appreciate you." And he's like, "Man, thanks. I appreciate you too." And then we hung up the phone. But that, it was literally 45 seconds, and he needed to know, and I wanted him to know it because I don't know if that got lost in the mix,
Totally.
So I guess my question to you, it was a question. I haven't gotten to it yet, but I'm going to get to it. Like when you say, look, I got guys in Japan, I got people in New York, I got people I've never interacted with. I have no idea how they got to your site, how they got to your workout, but you know that you're helping them. And that's defined success in and of itself because you're helping a stranger, right? So how do you think about when somebody says to you now, like, how's it going? What are your metrics? How many people are in the class? Like, how do you kind of like buffer that with like, bro, it's not all about that really, and like, I'm not here to show you like a bar chart of my revenue or my users. Like, how do you seem like at ease with like, hey, I'm building this, I'm going to build it the way I want to. And it's not about like me putting together like an investor presentation. So give us like, people need to start thinking about this. And I feel like you're on the cusp of that. So talk to us about how you define it.
I appreciate that. Yeah. I mean, listen, it's very difficult not to have that lens in New York City, right? Everybody's all about metrics and how you're going to scale and how you're going to do your next raise. And, from my perspective, I don't know about you, but I feel pretty powerless during this whole thing. And I thought to myself, I said, okay, what can I do to help, or what can I do? And all the Anckor classes I'm offering right now are free, or they're donation based, because I feel like this is my service. Like, this is my way to help people to take that moment to reflect and think about their total health, right? And one of the coolest parts about the class is that each class ends with something called a 1% stretch. And a 1% stretch is this like something that's a little bit outside of your comfort zone that what you want to bring more of into your life that you commit to by telling the whole class. And I'll actually follow up with each person. I'll say, how'd that go? And I think a good example that a lot of people would say is something like you just said, like, I really want to call an old buddy that I haven't said. And what I like is putting that in my calendar every week so that I first of all, I can be held accountable to it, but also I just give myself the mental headspace to reflect and think about one or two things that I want to bring more of in my life. And so the way that I measure the success of it right now, because that's all I can really do, is how many people I can get to come to the class, and also just how many people start to integrate this into their lives so that there's more of a, accountability to themselves to do the things that they want to do.
Yeah. I mean, I was actually going online last night and trying to figure out like how I'm going to make masks, and then I was like, then I woke up this morning. I'm like, you know what? I can affect more people by giving them the best advice and knowledge I can about opening up their clubs and their studios. And if I can give somebody one nugget of information that gives them more confidence in opening, they got an average of 5,000 to 10,000 members. Like, that's my service. Like, I shouldn't be making masks. If they need me to, I'll make them. You know what I mean? But like, that's my spot. And that's like your spot, that's your lane right now.
Well, and it's like what you said, I think what you alluded to before, where it's like, if you're going to start a business, I feel like you really want to start something where, it's in your zone of genius, or, it's something that you're just built for. Like, I feel like I am built for Anckor. I feel like I have this very unique background of college football, Tough Mudder, traditional, like masculine background, but also I've just done a lot of work when it comes to the more, what I'll call like mindfulness or just emotional intelligence side of it. And I feel like I can be a translator, and I can just come to people and talk to them. It's really intentional that like what I'm saying is I'm not trying to be woo woo or anything like that. I just want it to be science-based, and I want to give people permission to just take responsibility and accountability for their own general well-being. That's it. It's not trying to be anything other than that.
Yeah. I mean, but what you're doing and what millions of other, whether it's personal trainers or coaches, like a lot of the problem with this virus is people that have immune deficiencies. Granted, part of that's genetic, but most of it's lifestyle. Okay. I think I had the virus already and I just conquered it because I'm in good shape and I got my shit together, and like, bring it on, and it's going to flow right through. Whether I know that or not is irrelevant, because I think it, and, so, everything that we're doing in this industry, whether it's fighting obesity and fighting loneliness, like those are the two things that Dave and I are, that's like our mission. Like, if I can get people off the couch and get them in the gym, then they're not part of the healthcare problem. And that's our mission. So, before we leave here, I got to ask you, because a few days ago when I had the NFL draft, we'll pivot back to football before we get out of this. You know, this is like the 25th year that I'm undrafted. And I'm a little, and like I joke around, but I sit there with my wide receiver gloves. My mom didn't let me play football, so I had to play soccer. I played goalie, but I actually I went against the wall and I figured out what my wingspan was, because I was like, I had to get my stats together. So I got a 76-inch wingspan, and I'm like, dude, I know I could have played even at 48. Like, I'm just ready to get drafted.
Nice.
So you know, your background seems ideal for what you're doing. I appreciate you being on here. We always leave with a quote. So if you got a quote that you want to throw out here, we're like quote collectors.
Yeah, I'd love to share one. Just quickly, what you said about like accessibility. I just want to be clear, like, this workout is for anybody. Like, the cool thing about this workout is it's time-based and it's body weight. So you really don't need anything. And the person who's in great shape will get gassed, and the person who's maybe not in great shape will get gassed. And so that's what I feel like is also unique about it. But yeah, I got a quote for you. This is something by James Clear. I don't know if you're familiar with him. New York Times bestselling author. He wrote Atomic Habits, which is a great book about habit formation. He says, the difference between a good day and a bad day are a few productive and healthy choices made at decisive moments.
I like it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this was a decisive moment for both of us. So I'm glad I had the opportunity to meet you here online. I hope we meet in person. Please use me and the Square as a sounding board or trampoline for your business. And I'll ping you after I do my first Anckor workout and crush my own body weight.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate the opportunity to be on. This is so great. I enjoyed the chat. And thanks again.
All right, buddy. All right, stay safe. Good to see you. Thanks for your efforts.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you.
All right, bro.
Bye.
Take care. This is Pete Moore. As you know, I am a big believer in personal development. I got a time-saving opportunity here for you, recommending Dan Millman's 4 Purposes of Life. Go to audible.com/Halo Talks. You want to register there, get a free audiobook. It's $14.95 a month thereafter, giving you things that I do to make myself better, and hopefully it makes you better. Go Halo. Let's play to win.